This is Sarah.
This is Jenna. We're from Name 3 Songs, and today we're getting candid with Bae Faction.
Hi, we're back, and you're listening to Getting Candid with Name 3 Songs. And this has been a big couple weeks for pop girlies. Sabrina Carpenter obviously released her latest album in Short and Sweet. We also had Addison Rae and her latest single in Diet Pepsi. And Jenna and I have just been talking about how we are really back in like the late 90s, early 2000s era of pop girl music in a way that like I never thought was going to resurface again.
I've been waiting for it. You know what? Like,
Yeah.
I'm being so for real. Like that era, obviously that era of pop music, so elite. We haven't really had a big superstar since then doing the same style because, you know, Miss Dua Lipa being a pop star, but doing it very, like, I don't know, kind of like a dancey, more dance leaning way. Billie Eilish, this was never her thing. Olivia Rodrigo, even with like Guts and Sour, she's definitely doing it in more of a rock sense. But Sabrina's giving us vocals. Sabrina's giving us pure pop. Addison Rae with Diet Pepsi, she's embodying Miss Lana Del Rey. Like it is. This is the return of pop music, baby.
But it's like the Addison Rae stuff is like Lana Del Rey meets Britney Spears.
Yes.
And so it's like interesting. And it's like their stuff is also still so different from like even what Chappell Roan's doing. And it's just so cool to kind of have these moments where it's like the choreographed dancing, the music videos that feel very like specific to the early 2000s, like all of these moments that are just like harkening back to a time of bubblegum pop. And I'm just so obsessed with it because it's also just like being all out like, yeah, I'm a little obsessed with, I don't know, it's just giving boy crazy, but like not in a bad way. And I feel like that was kind of like what pop music kind of used to be about too, where like the video was always about like, there's always some hot guy in the video who's kind of useless. And I'm just obsessed with it. Yeah, it's okay.
Sometimes that's all we need. Some mindless pop music and we love it.
So in other fangirl pop culture news, obviously everybody is aware. I'm sure everybody's like either got their tickets by now or is crying because they didn't get their tickets by now. But Oasis is back and the men are exhibiting fangirl behavior, which is honestly what society deserves, is men screaming, crying, throwing up because their favorite band is back in action and they don't know what a Ticketmaster queue is. So honestly, this is feminism.
They've never seen a Ticketmaster queue in their lives.
Liam and Noel Gallagher were like, we're gonna do something feminist by making the men lose their minds.
And their money.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for anyone who lives in England who does not care about Oasis right now, because I'm sure the streets are running rampant with bucket hats.
Parkas and bucket hats. I really, really, really want, and I'm hoping that some reporter for like the Daily Mail or the Sun went up north to Manchester and did some interviews with local barbers to like see what the haircut situation is going on up there. See the popularity rise in mod cuts. Like,
yes, please.
Please
bring it back.
This is so entertaining and it's so fun and it's honestly just like what everybody deserves. But also my favorite thing is like the amount of tweets of like these like 40-year-old men being like, oh, if the crowd is just filled with a bunch of Gen Zers who only know Wonderwall, like be so for real. Like it's so funny. Like Oasis stopped being a band in 2009. Like there are people from so many generations who like know this band.
Yes.
And like even people who are like 24 who were like 9 when Oasis broke up, like their parents could have taken them to an Oasis show when they were like 7. Like it's like so plausible.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's so funny to me. But I did see this tweet that is just gonna be my favorite tweet for the rest of my life, where somebody was like complaining about like, oh, like it's gonna be so annoying when there's all these like Gen Zers in the crowd, blah blah whatever. And this girl's like, I hope that a 19-year-old who spends all of her time making fan edits of Liam Gallagher and Damon Albarn being in love gets your ticket specifically.
It is the gift that keeps on giving. I think everyone's also waiting on the edge of their seat to see if the shows really happen.
Or how many of them happen.
Only time will tell. It's in 2025. Like it is a whole year away, which is wild.
So much time for family therapy. Like who knows?
Yeah. All right. If you guys want to hear more about topics like this, you can find that over on Name 3 Songs on your favorite podcasting platforms. And now we're getting candid with James McDermott from from Bay Faction. Born out of an online message board, Bay Faction emerged in the Boston DIY scene in 2015 with the debut of their self-titled record. The band quickly garnered a cult following online and from touring, and now in the year 2024, after a 4-year hiatus, Bay Faction is back, making their highly anticipated return with the release of new single Drive Home, which marks the band's first new music since 2020.
So we're getting candid with James about the decision to bring Bay Faction back and what he's learned in the process of taking time away. We also talked to him about the choice to re-release the band's self-titled album and having that realization that the songs on it were no longer his and had taken on a new life with their fans, as well as how James's songwriting style has evolved and changed over the years to include a new level of vulnerability. So with all that, let's go get candid with James.
Hi, James. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to talk to you today. I'm just so excited Bay Faction is back in general because you guys came onto the scene in like 2015 and you would have been 20 years old. So almost a decade has gone by since then. And obviously a lot has changed with the band and in your personal life and just like in growing older. And so in Bay Faction's music, you write a lot about intimacy and romantic relationships. And after listening to the new batch of Bay Fac songs, it's clear that your personal relationship with intimacy has shifted over the years, and the way that that's reflected in your lyrics is really interesting. So I'm curious, like, do you feel that this is because your personal relationship with songwriting has changed, or do you think that this is more so just a part of getting older and you having like a better understanding of your own emotions?
It's always a bit of both. I think I become more bold as time has gone on, as like anyone does when they get older.
Yeah.
And it's something I've been really scared of, actually, is like solidifying with age. That's something I see in a lot of my older relatives and older people in my life in general. Like some of it is because of the songwriting changing, but I think the songwriting is only as good or as relevant as like what's going on in your life and like how able you are to express it. So I've definitely done a lot of work to like get rid of any kind of blocks that keep me from what I actually want to say. That's my earliest memory of songwriting, is finishing something and listening to it back and being like, oh, I didn't actually say anything even remotely close to what it is I set out to do. So a lot of it's that, and a lot of it's just like, you know, as you get older, you have like less time in general for things. Like your life expands naturally, and you know more people.
Yeah,
you're just busier, and so when I write now, it's usually way less frequent, and it's like for shorter periods of time. And I've noticed that in doing that, it just keeps me really focused, and I can't really pay attention to anything for more than like a couple hours straight anyway. So that being said, that's one thing that hasn't changed with age, is my attention span, which is a different subject.
You mentioned that when you were writing when you were younger, you felt like you didn't necessarily write the things that you intended to. Was this kind of a process of understanding your own emotions, or was it kind of letting things out on into song and seeing what happens and realizing you felt differently than like how you thought?
Part of it is that, but a lot of it is this sort of subconscious release. You know, it's like when you have a dream, you wake up and you're like, wow, I never want to feel that way again, and you feel that way the whole day, and there's no reason as to why you do. That's a big part of it. Another part is that I have done a lot of work to become more concise with my language as I've gotten older, and I do this when I speak, and I will yap and yap and yap about like nothing, and that happened in the songs. And something really good about that was that I was able to develop a lot of characters that were very personal to me. And at the end of the day, it kind of became like this like therapeutic practice of like, you know, by hour number 3 of yammering on, you kind of figure out what it is you're after.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't what you set out to do at all. And I think that's my favorite part about songs, is my favorite part about like lyrical music specifically. Is that you can hear somebody, if they're really being honest with themselves and with you, there's always a subtext to a song. And that's also something I focused on a lot and like getting good at, is like how to say as many things as I can at once.
Yeah.
You know?
So is your process still kind of in that vein of just like, I'm going to just get all these feelings out and then refine it?
Kind of. It's been more like bit focused lately. I don't really know anything about comedy, but I love the approach that a lot of comics take to writing stuff, is they have a punchline or they have something funny that happens, and then like this whole world develops from that little piece. I admire that a lot. So I've been trying to do that. Like today I was walking in Brooklyn and I'm getting like crystal girly pilled, but I keep seeing like 555 like everywhere I go, or like things like that. And then it's like, I don't know, like I wouldn't start a song like that, but then like maybe there's something, you know, you go deeper and deeper, and like that's an old New York license plate because it's blue, and you know, or it's yellow and it's not white and blue, and like that's generally how things start. Or like I'll catch things that people say on the train. I'm a really bad, I don't know if this is illegal or not, but I record people all the time.
I love that.
On the
Wow,
voice
okay.
note.
Yeah.
Like if there's
Yeah.
if there's somebody who has like an interesting voice, like on the subway or something,
Mhm.
like I have to like take my phone out, to the point where like I've definitely lurked around folks like on the sidewalk, like maybe I'm waiting for an Uber or something, but I'm literally just recording somebody with an interesting voice.
That's
or
okay. The
bits
amount
and
of
pieces.
times
Okay,
I've
this-
heard somebody having an interesting conversation in the city and been like, I'm suddenly walking behind them for a little bit longer.
For 6 blocks.
For
and it's
4
like-
blocks, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, this is like audio journaling, like audio collaging almost, because like something that I do, like I'm a very like visual person, like collaging and writing a lot. And I've been collecting photos or like moments like this, or like phrases or like things that I just keep seeing like in my daily life. And then I'm like making collages out of them. But it's like, you're like taking these bits and pieces and like weaving a story in like lyrics and music, which is really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun to do, and it's better than scrolling on your phone. And like, I've been living in London since November, and I don't get service like down in the
Yeah.
tunnels or in the tube. I still call it a train. It's a train, sorry, but I don't get service down there. So like, that's been a big part of it too. It's just like tapping record, and then when you get off, you see what you get.
Yeah. I feel like that's a really cool way of like experiencing the world and like in a different mindset too, especially when you're thinking about like going into an album where like the characters in the first album that you wrote like feel very real, and I assume that they're like based on people or something along those lines. But I guess like in the vein of the fact that you like took the album off and you felt like it was too personal, it kind of feels like you're figuring out like a new way to tell similar stories just based off of other people. I could just be like making a big assumption, but
No, I mean they are personal to me, but I think like the characters in the self-titled record that we did and future characters, they're just like these archetypal kind of figures, and that's like a thing that I learned about people when I moved to New York from Boston, like back in like 2017 or something, or 2018, was that like there's these kind of like and kids now call it like NPCs or whatever, but it's like really truly like so many personalities are duplicated and like over and over and over again, and if it's not like a carbon copy of one, everybody shares similar qualities, and so those characters are just like the most like opaque personality types like stuck into one person.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this method helps you kind of channel your emotional vulnerability in a way that doesn't feel so vulnerable?
100%. Because it's like there's stuff that like Jasper would do on the first record that I would never do ever. And it's like I think the same reason like people write such extreme characters in film and TV is that, you know, like it's easier to view pretty common human behavior when it's turned up to 100. And it's easier to write about it if you just change the name, and it's, you know, people are kind of dumb in that way, where all of a sudden I can say anything I want, and, you know, and it doesn't matter. We see this today, and like there's a big thing happening with like DJs wearing like masks again. It's like the horse girl. There's a lot of them out, and I totally get it, and I love it, because like there's some stuff like you don't want to have an entire career based off ketamine if you're a person, but if you're a horse, that's hilarious. That was a dream that you could do it, and, you know.
Well, I mean, it's like artist persona that I feel like rock stars of yore really leaned into, and like we're even seeing it with like Chapel Roan and like the newer kind of vein of like pop acts and rock acts and everything. And I mean, I don't know, I feel like even growing up, like there is always like the larger than life like person who comes up on stage, and you're just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna embody this. And it sounds like you were also doing that in your lyricism, like you're saying, where you're like, okay, like I'm gonna put these stories onto like other people. But like in thinking about like the fact that like you guys went on hiatus for 4 years and you like came back and you're essentially like you're like starting something new, but like of something that already has existed, like are you thinking more about like how you're going to present yourself like to an audience in order for it to not maybe feel as overwhelming as it did when you had started out?
No, I had to grow up, and I think that's the bottom line. You know, is like by nature of if you're gonna decide to do this with your life, I'm sorry, you just have to be out there. And actually one thing I've learned is to hide less, because back to these like kind of archetypal similarities in people, it's like that's the reason my favorite artists are who they are, is because I see so much of myself in them, and I can understand them so well. And I think that for me, that's the point of being in entertainment or being in music or whatever, is to give people like, okay, no, like I do that too. We're incredibly similar, and that has been the biggest challenge for me, is to just like drop everything. Like everyone wants to be cool, everyone wants to be mysterious, and like super ordered up and like, but it's not the point.
Yeah.
So no, I've been doing a lot of work to be just as honest as I can, and it's actually easy because you have to do less.
Yeah.
You just have to be yourself. Like it's like kindergarten all over again. Like I remember my mom, before I go to school in kindergarten, my mom was like, "Be yourself."
Well, it's like Jenna and I were talking earlier about like how music is like one of the most accessible forms of art, and yet so many artists like that are big seem to grapple with the idea of being perceived. And so it sounds like you did kind of like that grappling of like, okay, if I want my music to be heard, like I need to be perceived and be okay with that. Like what was that process like for you of like coming to terms with like, okay, people are going to be perceiving me?
A lot of it was like self-forgiveness of like, I think that was the big thing over COVID when everything was kind of shut down. That was like the point where I was just like, okay, I have to be okay with like who I am, and like I will never be any of my idols. I'll never be anybody that I want to be. And there's a level of forgiveness you need to reach, and you have to do that if you have any other job too. I mean, it's like, this isn't like, it's not, these are things that you have to do to like become aligned with yourself as a person. So like every time you step out of the house, you're not like riddled with anxiety because somebody might find you out or somebody might catch you and like, oh, you don't actually wear these jeans, like you dress like that, just like little things like that. And I think COVID helped a lot. My family helped a lot. We were gone we toured a lot, and so we weren't home a lot. So yeah, getting close with like my parents, getting close with my sister, not feeling like, I just like hatched from an egg and as this weird character that I didn't recognize. Like
it's almost like these songs, especially the early songs, were so personal to you. You're like your teen years, you released it, when you're 20 going through college, all this stuff. It's like you were so close to, and I mean, especially at that age, like you're feeling so much all the time and everything feels so like heavy and dramatic and like really big highs and lows. And I feel like maybe for you, it's almost like you had to like detach yourself a little bit from it, because it's like that body of work had kind of taken on its own life by like fans and people on the internet and through touring and everything. And so did you feel like you almost had to have some separation in order to like figure out who you were?
Yeah, totally. To grow up again, like to finish like maturing. I think I was kind of a late bloomer in a lot of ways. Like, and it was fine. And I was really nervous about it. I was like, well, like, like the insecurity of being an artist comes in and it says like, well, what if they forget about me? And I had to be okay with that. And luckily they didn't, which we're blessed to have. I think separating from it was really important, and also just relearning everything. Like that's the hardest part about improving, is that you have to destroy progress. And I hate that. Like it keeps me up at night, and it's something that we're going to do over and over and over and over and over again. In a year where the band is going to listen to Drive Home and be like, oh my God, like what did we do? Like why did we do that? And we have to just be okay and just continue moving, But yeah, separation is huge, and that was mostly why.
And I mean, you had taken your debut album off of streaming for a few years and then re-released it in 2023. And you did an interview with Stereogum last year talking about your decision on how to do that, and talking about how like performing those songs that you wrote as a teen were just like affecting your mental health negatively. But now that you're playing shows again for the first time in 4 years, and like had the time in between where you were like working on a different project, like you had this time away from Bafe Action, like what has it been like for you, like revisiting those songs, like not only in like preparing to make new music, but also performing them live in front of people again?
It's been great. I love it. I really do love it. And I think that's what I needed to do, is like simplify a little bit. And this goes for any artist or like anybody making anything. You're going to have to embrace these things as you continue your career. But growing up, I didn't have any boundaries, like any emotional boundaries at all. I was so porous, And so playing those songs, it would really just like I don't know, maybe something in the subconscious, like repeating those words over and over and over again every night. It had this bad effect on my mental health, but I think now it's just like recognizing it for what they are, and realizing that we're not doing this because like we love playing all the old music every night. We're doing this because they're entire groups of people that like it's for them. It's completely for them, and it's not for us. And I think that's another thing that comes with age, is realizing that like as soon as you put any of this stuff out, it's like your parents telling you like in like the early 2000s, like, what if you stay in your AIM chat room? It's going to be there forever, and it's not going to be yours anymore. And that's fine. But you just have to know that there's a struggle with ownership and like domination, dominating your IP, basically. which you can.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild because I mean, a lot of the musicians we talk to like kind of grapple with this. If it's like you made something that was so personal that came from the inside of your brain, and then you put it out there in the world, and it's like
That's not yours anymore.
not really mine anymore. Like,
Yeah.
It's just a crazy like concept to like grapple with.
Totally. I mean, it's going to happen to you guys when you upload this podcast. You know, it's going to be the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And somebody might really enjoy it in their car, and they'll remember that moment for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And you have no control over how they remembered it, or what they took from it, or how they think your voices sound and my voice sounds.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what it is. But it's really not that deep. Like, it's fun. It's what we're supposed to do.
I mean, it's interesting because I feel like for most artists, like at the beginning of their career, like, because we talk to artists at like all stages, you know, and like a lot of them when they're just starting out, it's like, oh yeah, like this is like so personal to me. And there's like some songs that like I wrote and I just like couldn't put out, or like when I did, like there was this anxiety around it and all of that. And like the way you're talking about it, it kind of turns music, which is something where people always joke about like, oh, like the egos in the music industry and like all this stuff. But it kind of eventually turns into like a very selfless act in a weird way, because you are like choosing to share something deep from inside you with people who like probably need it more than you did.
I mean, I think we should think about art this way more. Like, it would be selfless for me to make art. Like, I'm like dead ass. Like, sorry, I'm serious.
No, you're right about that though, and
I'm
I
serious,
think
like,
you need to be that perverted mentally to like continue doing it. I'm serious. You have to think of yourself as like a. It's
your
kind of
gift
close.
to the world.
Yeah, it's like hospitality more than anything. You know, like I wouldn't go too far as to say it's like a gift that maybe to some people's worlds it is, but no, it really is. Like if you're privileged enough to have people who enjoy your music and like connect with you because of it, it kind of is your responsibility to continue like entertaining them.
It is both like, well, this like feels the ego, but also is ego death like at the same time. So it just depends like talk about egos in the music industry, like it depends like the motivation of why you're doing all these things, I guess. Yeah.
And everybody in the music industry has different motivations, like completely. It's so random. It's the complete Wild West, and people are in it for like the most ridiculous things ever, and that's great. But yeah, it can come from anywhere, and I think that's another thing that makes music really fun for me to continue like participating in as a fan, is to listen to bands who are clearly, or artists who are clearly uploading music because they want to like affirm a part of their identity, or people who are, you know, you can hear them, they've never been understood once in their entire life, and every song is their last chance to feel as if like, you know, they can like yell out to the void and hear something back. You know, there's a million different reasons.
It's really interesting. And I mean, like in thinking about all of this, like with the deep connection that your fans did have to the music in regards to the fact that like people were just like, wow, like I don't know, it's kind of that thing where like you not purposefully, but like it became kind of like this otherworldly thing when you like take it away from the internet, because it's like, oh, like the only way I can access this is like if I have it on vinyl, and then like my friend has to like record it on a CD for me, and it becomes like this other thing. And I think in that way, in some senses, like fans can develop like a deeper connection to that music because they're just like, this is mine. Honestly, it's like every like emo gatekeepy kid's dream, I think, for their favorite band to delete their music off of Spotify, because they're like, oh wow. But no,
you're right. You are right, and it totally backfired. Us taking it down totally backfired, because I took it down. I was like, in my mind, I was like,
you're like, Babe Faction doesn't exist anymore.
No one's ever gonna listen to it ever again. It doesn't matter. Like and it galvanized a lot of people's interest in the project. And I think, had I known that, I probably wouldn't have done it. I would have just like
you would have backfired for like the intention you had, but like
but in general,
notoriety wise, like, maybe a better move.
And any artists out there listening to this, that is my strategy. If you do it, I will know.
This is the new deleting your entire Instagram page to promote your new album. This is the new. Just take off all your
delete your artist project, dude. Get rid of it. No one wants it.
But like them creating that like deeper connection to the record, because again, it became like this sacred body of work kind of thing. Like by proxy, made them more connected to you. And like that is something we talk about a lot, like on the podcast and in the interviews, is like the parasocial relationship side of like music consumption and like enjoying music. And so I'm curious, like, how you've navigated like this balance between like being as accessible to fans as I've seen you be, and the fact that like you kind of do also have to just like keep peace within yourself and like understand that like while they know you, they also don't.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's an ongoing thing. I personally, the way I like deal with it is that I figure if they really are listening and if they really enjoy it, they know exactly who I am. I just don't really maybe know who they
Yeah.
are. A lot of them I do. Like we talk to as many people as we can at shows, and like we try to be as present as possible. But I kind of like it. I think like I'm pretty insular. I only have like 4 or 5 people that I talk to like every
Yeah.
day. One of and so for me it's like, oh, here's like this group of people that I've been like yelling at for a response back for like however
Yeah.
long, and it's nice to hear that back, because it's funny too, like this last tour that we did, it was like the first one in 4 years, and just again like the similarities of the people at the shows who like Jimmy and Connor and Jake who would come up, it was like astounding.
Yeah.
I was like, I probably would be friends with a lot of them
Yeah.
had we met under different circumstances. That's how I know we're like on the path that's like right for us.
Yeah.
It's like I understand these people.
No, I mean, that's really beautiful. And I feel like, I don't know, it's just really cool because I remember like growing up, like I had similar like situations like with bands where they were touring like the size venues that you guys are playing right now. And it's like that deep connection where like they know that like I get them. And so there's that thing where you're just like, okay, like in a different life, like we could have connected in a different way. And so like for you also, like the fact that this is a comeback tour, like what has it been like reconnecting with these people? Because I'm sure like you're seeing faces in the crowd that you recognize from like the past in that regard. And so it's like you're all new people. It's like you're all new versions of yourselves. And so like have there been conversations you've had with fans that have like stood out to you where you're just like, oh, like not only has my relationship changed with this music, but their relationship has changed with it too? And like what's that been like for you?
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of that. I mean, I definitely recognize a lot of people, and a lot of people showed up who like couldn't come the first times that we played because they were like too young to get in or whatever. And so there's like this other group of people that I'm like, oh, well, we have like people. And they're like, no, I've been listening since I was like 15.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I mean, it feels like a family reunion, definitely. Like it's a lot of like, it's a very high energy, it's a very light feeling in the room for all the shows that we play. And again, we try to like sell all of our own merch as much as we can and like talk to as many people as we can. And I've noticed like a lot of people haven't really changed that much, at least in like this small window of like, however long we get to like talk to people individually, at least like in like the Bay faction spectrum, they haven't really gone anywhere.
Yeah.
That's been really nice to see.
Yeah.
Again, it feels like a family reunion of just like, oh, like I feel like I know you really well, and like nothing has really changed.
That's nice.
It's a beautiful thing. But I think also, I mean, along with the shows that you've been doing, like people are very excited for new music. And I know like historically Bay Faction has been referred to like as an emo band, which is like kind of funny because then we can just get into semantics of genres and like what does emo mean and like is this really emo? And I think for a lot of people, the time at which Bay Faction came around, kind of this almost emo adjacent emo revival situation happening, and like a lot of that, dealing with the lyrics and just the styling of the music itself. But it feels like with the new single and with the stuff you have coming up, like it's a lot more pop leaning. And so what made you kind of want to explore a different sound or just bring in different elements to Bay Faction?
There are a lot of things. The main thing is like just feeling lighter as a person. The whole emo adjacent thing, people used to call bands that if they're like indie but they're like kind of sad.
Yeah.
Like the last true emo band was like Mineral and like American Football, those folks. But I think the main thing is that we want to have fun. I think there's so much more to be expressed in like a major chord than there is a minor chord. And like I'm serious about this too. Like I really think the way it resonates with people, there's just more. There's more to be given there.
Vibrational frequencies.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing. And I don't know, I've just been listening to a lot of really fast-paced music lately. A lot of like Belgian techno and a lot of kind of like Slavic influenced dance music, like this really sheer cold sound, but it's still very fun. And I've been on that for like the last 4 years, and I want to do that where it's like you pull up to a show and like there are people if they don't want to get involved, they can like stand in back and listen to the words. And if there are people who want to get involved, they can completely lose themselves in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
To be able to do that is great. And that's also what I expect when I go to a show. Like I love it when bands like speed their music up. I love it when there's like some sort of call to action where you can like everybody jumps in the net.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun. It's like that's I think it's
I'm gonna call it's not moshing, guys. This was a call to action.
This is actually a call to action. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna stop the whole band.
I'm just saying, you play Drive Home or Cards. I'm gonna mess stuff up so bad.
If you don't punch one person's hair out, you're out. Yeah.
You have like two people who are gonna just like cause chaos at the New York City show.
I know, and I mean a lot of that too because we haven't played New York in 4 years.
Oh wow!
And that's like back to seeing like the people who come out to the shows and stuff. That's something I noticed too. Is that like as soon as the show starts, like people are like they're either like they're gonna kill me, like they're like it's like they're like looking at me like in Jake and Connor. Like so intense, or they're like kind of nervous, like because they just like they don't know what
they're like. You did this to me.
No, literally.
You put me in this position. What do you have to say for yourself?
Literally,
you're like literally having to answer for the last 4 years.
I know, and that's yeah. Crazy. This is our like I'm sorry tour.
You're coming before the jury.
I know the emo jury, yeah.
Well, it's like big feelings are being had, like, and you're playing new music that I feel. Well, I don't know. It's like it was interesting, like having seen you play in Philly and like experiencing that, where like I discovered your music through your DBA James project, so I know like a completely different like sounding version of you as an artist, and then discovering Bay Faction after the fact, and then getting to like see you perform that. I think it was just like so interesting, like experiencing that, like that kind of room and vibe and all of that, because the fans really are just like intensely watching and like taking it all in, and it was like really cool to see them like get more into the show as you did as it went on, like throughout the night, if that makes sense, because it kind of felt like it was like I don't know, it felt like the set list was like going in a direction in regards to the fact of like, okay, like we're gonna like start slow and like get this more excited, which I think is really cool, and it felt thought out. I don't know.
No, it is. It definitely is, and I noticed that too. That's something I remember on tour or from tour, is that you kind of have to enable people to have fun with you.
Yeah.
If you do it right, you know, that's the real, and like the point of like performing and also of being an artist is like there are things that people will never allow themselves to do. Thoughts that they'll never allow themselves to have, and you just have to like enable them to do that. Like my favorite thing is like Playboy Cardi videos on TikTok of his shows live, and he just like yells like a ghost, and people, that's their cue, and they know that once he's done that, they can go absolutely bonkers, and they do every single time. And so that's relief. That's like, you know, it's the same thing as a punchline or like a joke at a comedy show or something. Like that is the cue that you can just lose it.
Yeah, I feel like it is part of artistry to be able to conduct a room like that, and to be able as a performer to bring that energy to the stage, because I think some performers like are technically like very, very good musicians or very good singers, and that is like a whole experience in and of itself, but to be able to bring energy to a room is a skill.
Yeah, it's something totally separate. It's totally separate, and that's why, like, you know, we have like motivational speakers and like all these other people that do that one thing for a living.
Yeah.
On the same token, though, a lot of artists like, I don't want that for me, you know, like there's this band that we played with in LA years ago called Rhythm Omni, and their singer literally had like studio headphones on while he was playing the piano.
Yeah.
And completely captivated the room in that way.
Yeah.
You know, didn't get up really once. And it was just, that was a precedent. They're here to watch this. It felt like church. It was like beautiful. Yeah. It was really great. Yeah.
I mean, like the thought out idea of like putting on a show, I think, is an art, like we're saying, like it's an art form in and of itself. And like there's a place and time for every kind of emotion or feeling or whatever. But I think also like when it comes to having like an emo band, emo lyrics, like those lyrics that make you feel big feelings, like having a song like Drive Home that you can play in the middle of a set that's going to make everybody kind of be like, okay, like I can like let these emotions out and then kind of go from there. I think also feels like a peak and like a really positive thing in the mix of Bay Faction. Cause like even if you just like listen from like the first album to the second album to like what you're releasing now, like it feels like it's like going into a crescendo kind of thing. So it's like you've been like leading up to this like more like dancey, like feeling kind of music along the way anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right about that, and that's how our lives have kind of been, honestly, like from like when we started till now. And it is the feeling of like this must go somewhere, like the feeling after you cry, it's like that sort or like after you got a really bad brain freeze, and just that relief after.
The
I
relief,
think, we're like right before you get the relief, right before like the headache goes away, and I'm glad you noticed that, and I'm glad you're listening like that because that is something we've tried to do, and we've always tried to show a progression, in some
I mean,
way.
it's also interesting with what we were saying a minute ago about like the music you've been listening to like over the past couple years and it being more dance-based music, because I mean, if you think about house music and dance music, like a lot of it is like these slow builds and there is so much emotion and tension in it, but like in a very different way than like growing up on emo music is.
Totally. Like the first time I heard some of this music, I really couldn't believe the way it made me feel. I really like it blew me away so much. And I think the best music is made when you like are combining, not genre mashing, but you want the effect of one thing to be spoken through the medium of another.
Yeah.
And it's like and that's what I've been really focused on trying to do.
Well, I mean, I think that that's like so powerful and like important. I don't know. Like, I just like, I love when you can listen to an artist like discography and you can like tell that they've been growing and changing. But like, I feel like I'm growing and changing with them. Cause like sometimes I feel like artists just kind of are like, okay, this album did well. I'm just going to keep making the same thing over and over again. And then people kind of like grow out of it, or they're just like, really, again, like how far can you really go when you do that? And I think that that's like why you see situations like Catfish and the Bottlemen, for example, where like everything kind of sounds the same. It's all really good, but the band, whatever, they have their own inner issues, but like they stop, those bands kind of just like stop existing, because I think it comes also to like a head in regards to like every band member's like musical like output, like when you're kind of like stifled in one way or another. And so I think also that's like interesting, because I know like Bay Faction has had like at least different drummers like per album, and then like Connor came back. But like I think in those situations too, it's like you're working with different people, so you're having different inputs in regards to that as well. And so like I'm curious like what your experience has been like in creating this music like as a band, and like how that's changed over time too.
A lot of it hasn't changed. I mean, Jake is a really good songwriter, so he helps a lot with stuff. And he has his own project, Nuffer, which I'm sure you're aware of, which is some really incredible kind of introspective, indie sounding rock kind of stuff. But a lot of it really is like logistic, I guess, if this makes sense. It's like, what is like, if I'm going to write something, is Connor going to be like, it's going to feel weird playing it. Like I can write something, but is he, and like, is Jake going to like, if I say this, like, what's Jake gonna do on stage when I say it? Because this would like be like crazy if I say it, and like it's Jake gonna like be, So it's a lot of that.
There's things you've been holding back.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see. But I mean, and it's also too, being able to like show them stuff again. That's the biggest difference of being a solo artist and having a band, is that you have this kind of, it becomes more like an architectural pursuit, where you have all these like people telling you what they feel about the thing that you just did, and then you're changing it to be perfect in their eyes.
For you, is that experience something where it's like it's not personal, like you've had to learn for it to not be personal to get that immediate feedback from like having a band?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still working on it, and different people elicit different reactions from everybody in general. But yeah, I mean, we all know each other quite well, so I think I kind of can anticipate what it is they're gonna think about the thing I just did. But again, like, and I deal with that a lot with like producers and stuff too, because a lot of this music we wrote with like other people. Like Brandon Shoup helped out a lot on a lot of this production, and Jake did a lot of the production as a producer and a band member. And so those people and like third party people, it's always tough, but it's like I'd rather them tell me what they think about it, because you don't have, and like that's something I learned getting older, is like you don't have to take someone's advice. Like that's the hardest part of receiving advice, is that you don't have to take it.
So thinking about like having released music as Bayfaction in 2020, having taken a break, having done your own pursuits, doing some side projects, doing some writing for other people, etc., coming back, year's 2024, the music industry has changed a lot. Social media has changed a lot. What is expected of bands has changed a lot. How do you feel yourself adjusting to showing up like in the online space?
I mostly am now focused on only posting things, whether or not it has anything to do with our music. Right now it does, because we're like releasing music and going on tour. Trying to make it as close to something that I would like to watch online. And really, like, everyone's consumption of media is super vast and so varied. So it's hard to kind of nail down what it is you want to do. But I just like having fun with it. Like, I like posting TikToks of me at the mall, asking people to follow me on TikTok for $1. I think that that's something I would watch, you know, like, or like, I don't know, like just posting pictures of Jake and Connor are so, I wish they were here on this. They're so funny. Like, I have so many ridiculous pictures of them. And like, I don't know, posting like, which band member would you let hit your babe? Or like, I don't know, just like having fun, like being, you know, like things like that, I think is where I'm trying to be. And I'm not trying to take it too seriously, because there's a lot of serious stuff on the internet, and that deserves to be serious. And like, music is really fun, and that's what people should experience when they're looking at us online. And I think having fun with it and like letting people have fun with us is really fun. And that's like mainly what I'm focused on, but also looking great. Like, I've always been obsessed with aesthetics. I've always been obsessed with clothes. I've always been obsessed with curation and things like that. So being able to combine those two is also something like we're focusing on a lot.
No, I think that there's definitely like a good juxtaposition when it comes to your guys' social media. And I do like, I love that TikTok of you being in the mall, because it reminded me of like MySpace vlogs. And like, and that to me, when I'm like, oh, like this band was like called like, oh, like an emo band, like was big on like the emo subreddit, like all these things about like Bayfaction lore that I've like now learned. I'm like, this is so fitting to like the vibe. And I feel like, again, the type of audience that would be attracted to your guys' music would also, like you said, be attracted to that kind of content, because it does feel like something pulled from like an internet history book kind of vibe. And I like, totally. It's so fun. It's so fun in just like such a very specific way that I feel like fans are really missing. And so like, I know like you've been doing this more so now, but like, has there been like, what's the feedback been like to you guys? Because I'm assuming you're getting like DMs being like, you're being goofy on the internet.
Yeah, of course. But like, something you should remember is like, Bayfaction fans are so funny. Yeah, they're so ridiculous. Like, some of the stuff that we get is like so, but like, I laugh. Like, if I will open our DMs, which I need to do. I haven't done that, because we also have the same, we try to respond to every DM we get. Like, it's like ridiculous. It takes up like 2 hours a day, and I haven't done it.
Oh my god, so that's like 6 hours.
A lot. Yeah, but like, they are really, really funny, and it's usually just like pretty additive, or like, you know, like go to the Apple store next and like steal an iPhone, or like whatever. It's like just like stuff like that.
you should do a shift at Hot Topic.
Yes, Sarah, that's genius, actually.
Please write it down. Where's your pen and paper? Write it down.
First note, folks. Big deal. Shift at Hot Topic. I went in there when I was at the mall. I was looking for a pair of pants. I was like, I wonder what Hot Topic, like, what their pants look like. Ridiculous. Nothing has changed. Like, if you guys want like a real dose of nostalgia,
go to Hot Topic.
You got it. In a mall, though. Like, in a mall. I like it. I could,
You're like, I could smell like, high school.
Yeah, and before that too, you know, because like,
honestly,
oh my god, it was really the Hot Topic shift is so fun.
Kids these days, they don't know.
Thank you.
They don't know. They don't know. Some of them do though. Some of them, like the whole like Opium, Rick Owens, Ken Carson, Destroy Lonely thing is like, the closest we're gonna get to like what Hot
True.
Topic was. Like,
Yeah.
Crazy.
that will always be there. Yeah.
So speaking of this like emo era of the internet, I am curious because a lot of these interviews kept harkening back to like you guys seemingly being the darlings of emo subreddit, which is like so interesting. And so I'm curious, like the term like cult classic band was like thrown around a lot also in these write-ups. And so I'm curious for you, like what does that moniker mean? And is that something that you're like proud of, or something you're like, I want to get away from this and like start fresh?
No, I love it. I embrace it fully, mostly because anyone that you will say this to who knows anything about emo will just go off like they're not.
Yeah.
They're absolutely not an emo band, you know, and we're not, like, not even close.
But the subreddit accepted you as their own.
No, I know, because it was a very specific time.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge void in like, because like most real emo bands that play really great Midwest guitar driven emo music, like you probably won't hear them.
Yeah.
Like that's just kind of the bottom line. Like that's kind of what they do. And I think we were similar to them and we were trying to be heard. And I think because of that, it was a small pond.
Yeah.
But you know, I fully embrace that. I think that's awesome. Because also, like, most people don't know what emo is. Like, people will say, like, if you say emo to somebody, they're like, back then it was like, My Chemical Romance? Like, is that emo?
Right. Because we're going down this nostalgia rabbit hole, the last question that I will ask, which is the same thing we love to ask everyone, it's that the ethos of Name 3 Songs is to empower fangirls, and we think it's important to celebrate those things that we love unapologetically. So, James, what are you a fangirl of?
I am a huge... Okay, here's the thing. I am a huge fan. Could it be anything?
Yes.
Like what I'm actually a fan,
what you're actually
fangirl
like
of?
avidly a fangirl of.
It's nasty. Okay, I am unapologetically a fangirl of the Philadelphia whipped chive cream cheese in the circular container.
This is so specific.
Not the long one.
Okay, why specifically?
And I'm
that
a fan
container?
of putting it. It's something about it. I don't know. I think early on I had a great night and then I ate it and it just like forever clicked in my brain. Something like that. Like there's some like dopamine response. If it's in the fridge, it's gone. It's gone. It's completely gone.
You're eating a whole tub. That's
A
your
whole
ice
tub.
cream at the end of the day.
A whole tub. I'll put it on anything too. Like you could give me the most rancid, god awful tin of sardines and you put a little bit, I would eat it. I would eat the whole thing. It doesn't matter. And I think about it too. And it's my first, and I'm serious, when I get hungry, this is so shameful, but it's like, that's the first thing I think of is that like circular tub of like whipped.
Do you like
Philadelphia
constantly
cream
have this stocked in your fridge, or is this like a delicacy?
cheese. I can't have it at home. I'm serious. I can't, like you say stocked in the fridge.
This is like a 3 a.m. like bodega run.
Yeah, no, because there's no stocking it. It doesn't stay in stock. I eat it. Like it's
He's like, if there's 5 packages, they're all being eaten.
Do they
once.
have that in England?
No, they don't. They have
so
whipped.
It is kind of a delicacy.
It's kind of a big deal. It's a bit of a deal breaker for England for me. Is that
I'm sure you could get it shipped to England. I got some weird stuff shipped to England when I was living over there.
Like
just
what?
like food wise, because they don't have root
okay.
beer in England. So I like literally got root beer sent to me.
That's crazy behavior.
That's ridiculous. Glass bottle?
Yeah,
or
obviously.
plastic bottle?
I'm not a monster.
Wow. Would you DHL it? Like the frozen DHL
Yeah, I'd
packages?
be like, I need to figure out how to immediately get this to my home as cold as humanly possible.
Wow. Okay, I feel much better. Because that is ridiculous. I would DHL a single tub of Philadelphia whipped chive cream cheese just about anywhere in the world if I could afford
A
it.
single tub.
Yeah, like one.
$100 shipping, that's
Okay.
fine.
Anything else? Any other things you're fangirling about, or would you like to end on that note?
I think I'll end on that. I think
Okay.
that's kind of where it begins and ends for me. Really.
Well, thank you, James, for this lovely conversation. It was great to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
The growth that he has had over all this time is like really impressive. I felt really similarly when we talked to Colin from Grayscale of like talking to these guys who like started making music when they were quite young, didn't really understand like what they were going through or what their relationship was with like mental health or themselves, and kind of just putting it all out there onto paper, into song, and giving it to the world, and then growing with their music, And with James's situation, like going and doing another project with DBA James and then coming back to this band and like revisiting his history of like what he went through as a teenager and now what he's going through as somebody who's entering his 30s is like so interesting, of just like all of the growth that he's done and how he's like been able to put that into his music.
I do think it's interesting with him, like how he felt like it was very necessary to take time away from the band, and how his identity was really wrapped up in those early era songs, especially from his kind of teen years. I think it's really understandable to want to go work on yourself, work on your mental health, but also just to live life and to like have a few more experiences to bring back to your project. It's very interesting. You can tell like he's in a much better place and has learned a lot over the past couple of years and is bringing that to Bay Faction. So it's a very exciting time for the band. As you guys can tell, a lot of fans are very excited about this return and everything that will come from them in the coming months. So thanks for getting candid with us and Bay Faction. This has been Sarah and Jenna from Name 3 Songs.
And to get your pop culture fix, you can listen to new episodes of Name 3 Songs podcast on your favorite podcast platform.